When you take a look at the way that this decision was released in the two steps here, how do you really feed through the total impact, both for President Biden as well as the economy?
Well, good morning, Sonali. Two things. One is that a lot of people a lot of economists said when Biden first announced this last August, including well-known conservatives like Jason Furman and Larry Summers, um, that this would have an impact of about a $500 billion of gasoline poured on the inflationary fire. So you can argue that there's a disinflationary impact here. On the one hand, there's no disinflation from something that didn't happen, but on the other hand, to the extent that you were anticipating that this might happen, it might help. Secondly, as far as President Biden's politics go, I think you can expect a couple of things. One, he can really have his cake and eat it too. He could have, if he had victory in this, that would be a positive for him. But even in defeat, he can say, "Look, appeal to his base and say I tried," as Anne Marie just mentioned. Blame the MAGA Supreme Court, which is the theme of the week and theme of the month with a lot of fundraising Democrats. You remove an issue at the same time that doesn't poll well with independents. And paradoxically, Bidenomics has a better chance to do well because of the disinflationary impact here.
How does, Terry, this change or continue to change Americans' perception of the Supreme Court?
Well, I think it's a matter of folks on the left and the right trying as hard as they can to frame the court as part of their broader partisan druthers. And what we've seen over the past month in particular, but no coincidence here, since June is the last month of the court's term, is an attempt to kind of destabilize Americans' perceptions of the court through a lot of ethics and fundraising and the like. But just to go back for the last 2 days, the basis of a lot of these decisions are quite popular with the public. The 2/3 to 3/4 of the American public think affirmative action shouldn't exist. On the basis of the web designer decision from earlier this morning, most people would believe that that person, no matter who he or she is, would have the ability to take a piece of business or reject a piece of business for any reason. And finally, on the student loans, as I say, that's popular with Biden's base, but it's not particularly popular with the public at large. So so the impact of the court is not quite as damaging as politically as a lot of people think it is.
That was what I was going to ask you, Terry. If you think about kind of how popular this debt forgiveness was on the same week where we were having this big pitch around Bidenomics, where does this really fit into the grand scheme of how Biden sets up for 2024?
Well, what Biden's trying to do with Bidenomics is essentially say, look, we're trying to kind of rebuild the country for the longer term. That's a lot of what the continued pitch about infrastructure and the like is about. And I think the vast majority of people in the abstract think that's a good thing, although it's not an immediate fix. And also say, look, we're going to do a little bit more command and control economy around national security matters, and so that's going to have some popularity as well. But a lot of this is an appeal to, whether it be on the Democratic side or the Republican side, is an appeal to a base. And neither side can be that sure if it's base, if it's spending a whole lot of time trying to shore it up. Meanwhile, you've got a vast majority you've got a huge amount, as much as 40%, of the public that styles themselves independents that can be up for grabs, and they're not satisfied by either base. So it's going to be a matter of trying as we go into the 2024 elections, of both sides trying to secure their bases and move towards the middle after that.
Terry, is the timing of the recession going to determine who wins and loses the next election?
No, I think fundamentally the quality of the candidates and who those candidates are determines that. I think President Biden would have been much less likely to win in 2020 if there had been any Republican against him other than Trump. I think the same is true today. I expect the election to be very tight. You can see that in some polling already, but. There's some of that, but I would say also, Guy, that I think the recession is very important in the timing. There's a lot of talk that the earlier the recession happens, the better. But if what happens is that we sort of kind of continue on the is or isn't it into 2024. President's going to have a much more difficult time trying to convince people that the economy has improved, because their perception is it hasn't.
So one more question about this too, because on one hand you have this removal of a potential inflationary issue, but then you also remove this idea of more spending in the economy. $200 to $300 per month for many people, that is set to resume after August. So what does that mean in terms of how that could really layer on some pain in a recession?
Well, no, I think that's what that means is your question is answering itself, and I think appropriately so. That does in fact increase pain and make things a little bit more difficult for the president.